Have you ever wondered what the world's largest religion is? The answer, I think, will surprise you. Well, let's look at some statistics. Let's look at some of the numbers dealing with some of the world's biggest religions. Now, these statistics I'm about to give you are a few years old, but I think they're still pretty close to accurate. All right, so when you think of big religions, one of those is Hinduism. That's a pretty big religion. Hinduism has 1.1 billion, with a B, adherents or followers around the world. That's pretty big. But there's a religion that's even bigger than Hinduism, and that is Islam, or Islam. Islam has 1.8 billion adherents. That's pretty big as well. But isn't Christianity even bigger than that? Yes, it is. In fact, Christianity has 2.3 billion adherents on planet Earth. And yet, Christianity still is not the biggest religion in the world. So what is the number one religion in the world? Drum roll, please. The world's largest religion is Statism. Now, there are a couple of different definitions of statism. One definition of statism is when the state or government controls a nation's economy. Another way that the word statism is used, and this is, I think, more common in just our common everyday dialogue, statism is the belief that the government should control all or at least much of a society. That latter definition is the one that I'm going to be using in this video. So in this video, statism is the belief, the religion, that the government should control many or even most aspects of any given society. So why do I say that statism is the number one religion in the world? Well, in modern times, if you look at all the people that are alive today, the vast majority of people alive are statists. By the way, if you look into history, the majority of people throughout history have been statists. They wanted to give too much power to the government. They gave government too large of a role. For instance, remember those 1.1 billion Hindus that I talked about? Even though they are Hindus, they're also, at least most of them, statists. Most Muslims are statists as well. And I'm ashamed to say it, but the majority of Christians are statists too. Now, as you look throughout history, many of the people who are not statists have been Christians. But in our modern day, unfortunately, most Christians, yes, they are statists. The reason that in prior times many Christians were not statists is because in prior times, Christians were a little more diligent in studying their Bible, and the Bible prescribes a very limited role for civil government. Unfortunately, most Christians don't study the Bible as thoroughly, and so, unknowingly, oftentimes, they too are statists. Well, on every continent of the globe, people look to the government to do things for them that's really not the government's responsibility to do. And I mean every continent. Well, maybe not Antarctica. But anyway, in Asia, most people believe that the government should have more power and do more things than the Bible actually says that the government should do. And it's not just a problem in Asia. It's in South America, North America, Europe, Africa, Australia, you name it. Statism truly is a global phenomenon. Now, if you're still a little bit skeptical of my claim, let me give you some examples. For instance, in the Bible, the civil government should not be involved in the business of doing welfare, feeding the poor, caring for the poor. And yet, the vast majority of people around the world believe that it is the government's job to help the poor. In the Bible, the government has no business being involved in education. And yet, the vast majority of people around the world have been educated in government schools. When it comes to the idea of the government providing a retirement income for you, what we call Social Security, the Bible says that is not the government's job. And yet, most people around the world believe that it is the government's job. And in those countries that don't have a Social Security program, many of those people wish that their government had some sort of Social Security program. Well, I could go on and on and on and on. Most people believe that government-approved doctors are superior to those doctors who don't have government approval. Most people believe that government-approved medicine is better than medicine that hasn't been approved by the government. Most people believe that government-accredited schools are superior to those schools that the government hasn't given approval to. Well, while governments want to be in control of pretty much everything, and most people want the government to be in control of too many things, God does not approve of the government being in control of everything. Read Genesis 11. Read Psalm chapter 2. You will see that even though God lets bad governments go on for a time, He always puts an end to them eventually. Sometimes I hear people say things like, well, the Bible doesn't have a whole lot to say about politics. Not much could be further from the truth than that statement. Most of the Bible is about the conflict between God's people and statist governments. In fact, I think you could make a case that the Great Commission in Matthew chapter 28, one of the implications, and I would say strong implications, is that one of the church's main missions is to teach the nations not to be statists, to teach and disciple people to not give the government too large of a role. Unfortunately, we Christians, at least modern Christians, have failed miserably in this mission. We haven't been doing our job. Well, we can't change the past, but as we look to the future, let's see if we can turn this trend around. Let's see if we can make it so statism is not the world's #1 religion. And hopefully by God's grace, that is a mission that we can accomplish. So again, thank you for listening, and let's do better.